Greetings and salutations, viewers and listeners. Welcome to episode 113 of Word Ninjas Live. I am your host and instigator of insanity of all sorts for this week, Charles. And joining me tonight are.
Hello, I am Will, as usual. Only with good internet for the moment. Fingers crossed.
And also joining you is left his beer in the other room, Justin.
And I'm a very hairless Calvin.
Where'd it all go?
To a special cause I'll talk about later.
Fair enough. Before we get to that, let's roll right into our talking point for this week, which was an audience submission from a little while ago that we're finally catching up on. And it's really a two-part question, so let's jump right into the topic of how can writers make pairings work and feel believable? And how can writers make original and canon character pairings not feel like obvious or blatant self-inserts? Because that is a thing that does tend to happen in a lot of fan fiction. And seeing as the only one of us that actually wrote down notes, I'm going to let Will lead this off, and then the rest of us can chime in.
Oh boy. This is only because I write a story that's all about pairing my characters with each other and basically saying, kiss now, with all of my characters.
And it's also to make up for last week because you didn't really get a chance to talk at all.
I blame my internet for that. And space weasels.
Stupid space weasels.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll keep them at my place next time.
Make sure they're fed next time, too.
That was the problem.
Okay, so talking about the first part at least, making pairings work and feel believable, the obvious advice is to make them realistic. What did I have here? I'm just going to read off what I wrote because otherwise I'll get scatterbrained. The most important thing is to make it, don't force it, which I've seen writers and whatnot do where they want two characters together so they're just like in your face about it. These characters are going to be together, and you can tell that even though settings isn't working for it and the way they interact with each other may not feel right, the characters are going over head over heels for each other, even if it's like, but why? They don't have anything in common and have barely known each other longer than a day. What is this, an 80s action movie?
But it's true love.
Oh yeah, true love. As much as I am a fan of many Disney movies, the older ones are not quite as believable. Some of the newer ones, like Tangled, I thought went really well because there was actually, that's a good example, even though took place in a pretty short period of time. Movies like the Disney movies like Tangled and The Princess and the Frog, you see a progression of a relationship developing between the two characters. The only reason it seems fast is because those movies are only about an hour and a half long. And for your story, you can take a lot more time than that, so you can stretch it out. Show the characters meeting each other and getting to know each other as friends or acquaintances first, and show that they're realizing, oh, we have stuff in common, and I like spending time with him or her, and I feel funny, and my heart palpitates sometimes when I'm around them, and maybe it was just that burrito I had, but maybe it's that I really like this guy or this girl, and kind of like how it works in real life. Slow, awkward, confusing, doesn't always work out. Sometimes you fight, sometimes you have bad days, and it takes a lot of time, but eventually you can have your characters get together slowly but surely. And maybe one of them is even named Shirley.
I feel like you could circumnavigate all of this if all of your characters were in elementary school.
Oh, well,
Then they
yeah.
could just point to somebody and say, I like you.
Yeah.
Be my girlfriend.
But do you
Yeah.
like them?
Ooh, I didn't think of that.
Mm.
I wrote out this paper that has a bunch of check boxes. You could just check one and give it back. That'd be appreciated.
Yeah, just give them a list of yes, no, and then check, and then you compare, and it's like, no. You see, you said no for this thing, and I can't date someone that doesn't like that.
And now we have the internet. We don't even need paper notes anymore. I can just text her.
Just jump right into sexting.
Oh boy. Let's at least wait till middle school before we do that.
Pro tip, don't jump right into sexting. But yeah, it's definitely not something that should just happen. It's like, unless your characters are established to already be in that type of relationship at the start of your story, if your story is about characters who are getting together, it should take at least a few chapters. It shouldn't happen overnight. Over the course of weeks, months, I would say, would be believable for characters falling for each other and getting hooked up in a relationship. And honestly, for the second part, I feel like you can say the same with an original / canon character pairing, as long as you avoid the Mary Sue problem. You should be able to get away without the whole, how was it worded? Oh, blatant self-inserts. Ed just shivered in the other room over there at that word. He should really be here because he wrote a whole story where he had an original character and a canon character hook up together. And it took, I'm assuming, several chapters and traveling through multiple dimensions in order for that to happen. And I hear him coming up behind me right now.
I fucked with 10 people's different canon stories for this one. I can't hear a thing, so.
Would you like to?
While they figure out those logistics, I would just toss in the movie
Want to steal my seat?
which kind of tosses that whole trope out the window in regards to the two male protagonists and which one people expect to be the true love and which ones don't. At least for the first part of the question. Hey, we have an Ed.
Momentarily.
He has not spontaneously combusted yet.
Yeah, it's debatable. So, I was given the seat because, like I said, evidently this is a talking point that I should be talking more to.
Yeah, we
know
figured you
better
might
about
have words.
Canon and original characters better than you.
What was that, CJ?
We figured you might have words in regards to this talkie point.
Oh God, I have rants longer than this podcast for this subject. I deal with it on a daily basis. Considering I write fan fiction and I deal with RP and the things that people do, there is nothing. The groan from the other room was completely genuine about the whole Mary Sue problem. I'm all for self-inserts and whatnot, but do what you want to do, but be prepared for the crap you're gonna take by doing that, because it's basically just playing into the whole, oh, this person is my anime husband or my literary husband or whatever your genre happens to be, and that's all they want. And there's a certain self-gratification in that, but don't expect people to go along for the ride with you.
Is there a way to make that pairing believable? Or is it too complicated to bother?
I would add two things. You could go about it, the way I see it, is two different ways. You could either A, completely own up to it up front, that you're basically self-inserting yourself. And I think that goes a long way than trying to pretend that it's not you. The other trap that I bet a lot of people fall into is when they're writing the character that isn't themselves, they tend not to think about that person and what they want. They only think about what the writer wants. And that ends up making like a relationship very forced. So
Yes.
if you insert yourself and your personality into the character, and the canon character would have no interest in you whatsoever, just because your personalities are different, then you're really forcing that relationship, and you're going to burn yourself doing that. It's going to seem extremely forced that way. If you think about it in terms of what that character would be interested in, and sort of mold either your personal character around that, or make slight adjustments, you can probably get away with a little bit more than if you just put in your whole personality wholesale and expect everyone to fawn over you immediately. Because that's not really how relationships work, it turns out.
Yeah, no. And that is what, at least in my experience, that is what a lot of people do. They completely change or ignore the canon personality to make them more suitable to their own personality, so they can write this self-indulgent little whatever it's going to be relationship with this character. And like I said, there is nothing wrong with that. We all have our own little, fantasies and whatnot. And I just don't encourage sharing that.
Right. Much like old poetry that you wrote in middle school, it's probably going to turn out very cringy to an outside reader.
Yes. Like I said, write it to your heart's content, put it in a folder, and put it in a drawer.
And maybe the drawer's on fire.
You don't have to set it on fire. Just like I said, I would never discourage anybody from writing anything that they want to write. Just I ask that when people do this sort of stuff, especially because, like I said, I see it all over AO3, I see it all over Tumblr. There are some things you really shouldn't share, and a lot of these self-indulgent canon self-insert stories fall under that category. Now, if you want, like with the one that I did, I actually had a little bit of background on this one. I took Edward Elric, okay, of course, because everybody knows me, and I actually ended up pairing him out with an original character that I had written for us based on the Sailor Moon world, which was even crazier other than that. And at first, they actually did not get along, and because both of them had very strong personalities, very one was hard-headed and one was hot-headed.
So you're saying there was friction.
Yeah, but it wasn't perfect. I mean, he outright rejects her first thing. Even though I had gone into this story with the plan that they were going to end up together. But, it took, I had, about 20 chapters worth of stuff, I think, by the time I was done. And it wasn't until about, I'm like, yeah, CJ, you read it.
Yep.
And it didn't actually, happen. He gets this funny little thing like, okay, wait a minute, I can't just let this person walk away, but he doesn't know why. And that's kind of the underlying thing as they're going through these different worlds and whatnot. And like I said, he doesn't actually finally own up to it until, I say, about 2/3 of the way through. Something like that.
And
it's been a while since
I suspect that a lot of that has to do with the shared experiences that these two characters were having together.
Exactly.
You can't throw them into a boat and expect them to fall in love, even though it is a love boat and it's on the French Riviera. If you want these characters to get together, they have to have a rich history. Most relationships that aren't based on encounters from online develop over time and start out as friendships. And even some of my friends are extremely grating sometimes. And not actually any of you guys this time I'm talking about. I'm talking about other people that I know. And you, actually, some of you know who I might be talking about. And, you know, it's the shared experiences over time that help develop a relationship. It's not necessarily a love at first sight situation. If you're talking about true love and relationships, as opposed to whimsical fantasies and weekend trysts.
Yeah, and what was funny, like I said, what funny about the story that I wrote, it actually went into the female, my original character actually went into this expecting, you know, she had this whole big crazy crush thing. She was like the crazy fangirl when she first started into this story. Because the premise of the story is that, like I said, she gets sucked into these other worlds, and there's a whole big thing around it. And I'll be here all day explaining it. But so she went into it with that. Oh my God, I'm gonna make. You know, I want them. I need to be around this person. I need to. You know, I want to meet this person. I want to do this. It was, like I said, it was definitely a fangirl sort of crush. And like I said, he completely shoots her down, which I think is more realistic than, oh, she goes into this, you know, into this, and oh, it's exactly how she wants it to be, and it's perfect. And I think that's a lot of the trap that a lot of people fall into, because they want it to be perfect.
Then there would be no conflict, and if there's no conflict, there's not really much of a story worth reading.
No, there's not. You know, it shouldn't be all sunshine and rainbows. Or unicorn farts.
But I have a My Little Ponies Care Bears crossover. Do I have an exception?
That is sunshine, rainbows, and unicorn farts, along with. But you have to throw in angst along with it. Then it won't be acceptable otherwise. Because that's innately sunshine and rainbows.
Even My Little Pony has their villains.
Same thing with Care Bears, man.
What about the strawberry girl?
Strawberry shortcake?
Yeah.
Oh, she had her share too.
All of them did.
Even Rainbow Bright. I mean, this one was literally like sunshine and rainbows, and even she had the dark. You know, there was actual like story and whatnot to it. And they had little fluffy fluff ball things, and she pulled rainbows literally out of her pocket from these little crystal things.
Well, you mean everyone can't do that?
Right, I wish.
So, in regards to if you're taking like two OCs and pairing them together, if it's not just a self-insert or taking someone else's characters, do the rules change or adapt at all compared to the self-inserts and stuff like that?
No, because two people falling in love is two people falling in love. It doesn't matter if it's two characters that you created yourself, or one that you created yourself and somebody else's character, or even if you're writing for two other canon characters. I mean, you're talking to someone who does non-canon ships too. But it doesn't matter what two characters you're taking. If there's not chemistry, if there's not a reason, if the personalities don't work, even with the whole opposite, you know, the opposites attract thing is a wonderful trope to play with. But some work better than others. You just take the two characters that you have and just say, okay, is this one going to kill this one? Or is this going to be like a hate sex reality? Is this going to be a... You can't even break it like that. Like I said, it's just two people. If you just look at it that way, what would two people with these personalities, how would they end up?
I would even add one thing that, you know, even if both of these characters are falling in love with each other, love isn't always enough to have a relationship that lasts. You know, there's going to be conflict even if the two people love each other, and sometimes one person will do something that the other will find unforgivable, even though there's an emotional attachment. So writing out your relationships realistically and even more complex adds a lot of depth to both your characters individually and the relationship as a whole. So I'd recommend adding a lot of depth to the relationship and talking
Exactly.
about their experiences together and how they react with each other and together through your story.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I actually recommend that it not be. You know, and you don't have to give it happily ever after. You don't have to. You don't. You don't have to be fairy tale about it.
Even
It's
if you're
actually.
using fairy tale characters.
Yes, see. But like, as long as you treat your characters realistically, like real people, I think that is the best way to personally to go about it. And people would be more likely to get behind your story, get behind your characters. It makes them relatable too. You're appealing to not only like your fandoms if you're writing for canon characters or if you're writing in a canon world, or if you're creating your own world, you make a world that people can get behind, or maybe that want to be a world they want to be in. And they making anything, and like I said, this goes for fan fiction, regular stories, it doesn't matter. The more relatable you can make your characters, the better. Especially when you're writing your own original characters, because people already have their preconceived notions about canon characters. You're not going to fight that. Actually, the more you fight that, the less successful you're going to be, at least with fan fiction, because a lot of people hate to see variations to what they know. Unless you can thoroughly, completely, and unequivocally explain why they are the way they are. I'm the master of an AU. So, but there has to be reasons for it. There has to be different experiences. There has to be things, and you have to firmly establish what you're changing and why. That's canon pairings that I think is really important, especially when your canon character has a canon partner. Because the fandom notion is going to be this person belongs with this other person. Now, I'll tell you about when that's the case, when there's canon relationships like that, I'll tell you about half of a fandom isn't going to agree with it. But there's a laundry list of reasons why people won't agree with it. And I think you have to, in order to write a successful fan fiction in that sense, you have to very clearly, very concisely explain without just explaining it away why those two people aren't together.
Do you think that writing your story or your fanfic as sort of a prequel to that relationship works out better?
It can.
Depending on how much time you have available to you, I guess.
Yeah. You want to do you without completely alternate universing the world. I probably should mention what an AU is. Yeah, if you don't have a lot of time between what people know and where this relationship is supposed to have gone or whatever, sometimes it's just as bad to force to wedge this into that small space. I am a fan of taking reality and going after a relationship. In the story that I wrote, it got to the point where the reason, because it was, like I said, I used Edward as my canon, and Winry is his canon other half. But I explained it in that he took too long to figure out his own head, and he lost her. Completely feasible reason why two people wouldn't still be together. She wanted more than he was ready to admit to. And that's and if you're gonna split up a canon pair, something like that, is definitely a way to do it.
You probably want to avoid their canon pairing dying in your self-insertion character's arms, or you are there and then you're consoling the other person, and then that's how the relationship starts? Because that doesn't work in real life.
Oh, you don't know how many times I've gotten headaches from reading fanfic that did that.
Oh, I'm sure it's a very easy to write, but very difficult to justify.
Yeah. I mean, if, say, like if you're a canon, if one of them was sick or something to begin with...
Right, you could play on existing information from the existing canon.
And then you can, feasibly kill off the character you don't want. I still don't suggest doing it, but it's at least a little more... It's a little easier to wrap your brain around.
The unwanted character just goes into a permanent coma. Or has amnesia and is never seen again.
Some other convenient little, yeah. And believe it or not, readers see right through what you're doing.
You mean readers are intelligent and are capable of understanding what a good story is and what a bad story is?
I know, right?
I kind of wish some publishers picked up on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy half the stuff on the bookstore shelves these days. Just for that reason, because publishers have no idea.
Yay, marketing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
They need to do better. As a marketer, it makes me angry.
Don't market crap.
I'm not.
It's a testament to the marketer that can sell this stuff. It really is, because you gotta basically turn crap into gold and make people believe it. But please don't. Just don't underestimate the intelligence of your audience.
I'm still curious about the gender swap AU of Twilight that recently came out, and if that's actually a respectable adaptation or not. But I haven't read the original, and chances are I'm not going to read the AU that was created, because meh.
I didn't read the original. I've read 500,000 other parodies that have been written to this particular series. I find those hilarious, and I admit, and it's kind of funny that I say this, me of all people, I'm actually not a fan of gender swap anything, because I could do a whole nother spiel on that alone, and what people do right and wrong when they swap what's between a character's legs.
You mean it's not as simple as that?
It's not. Because there are certain things that would change about a character given the way they
hormonal
are
differences.
perceived. What's that?
Even just hormonal differences.
Exactly. And, taking a character and, taking a canonically male character and stripping them down, throwing them in a dress and giving them boobs doesn't
Slower. Also, I don't know if I would find a female werewolf attractive.
I would find that intimidating.
Yeah, there'd have to be some Amazonian shit going down.
Especially if it's the full moon, it would be very intimidating.
Yes.
And probably life-threatening.
Yes.
Regardless of gender.
So what you're saying is hot.
You can have that one.
But that's another thing that a lot of people do. And again, this probably gets into a very hot subject, but you know what? I'm all for this subject right now.
We've had two weeks in a row of hot subjects, so.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, a lot of people do it they'll change canons and things like that. They'll do it for representation. which, given the lack thereof for a lot of things in media, you won't hear me down it at all because, like I said, I'm guilty of writing it myself. But
Hey,
again, it comes
we all
down.
like candy sometimes instead of steak and potatoes.
Yeah, but the thing is, and you still have to, if you want to do that to make, like, say your character is female and a lesbian, and you want them with a main female character from a story, but the female character is very strongly expressed as a different sexuality. And I won't say like they like other men, that they're hetero or whatever. I'm not going to get into that whole entire nightmare because that's just, like I said, that'll take too long. But if you're going to make a character that is not well established as one thing, like one orientation or whatever, and make them this way, at least take the time to make it believable. And a lot of times the characters that people want to do this to, they don't show any kind of, they're not ambiguous enough that people will believe it. And I can't really use the FMA world for this one because, like I said, we're probably the worst offenders. But a lot of that, that sort of relationship stuff isn't talked about, so there's a lot of room to play with. But
There we go.
It's something to keep in mind when you want to write these sort of things. Again, I am all for representation. I am all for adding characters that, have different histories, have different ethnic backgrounds, have different sexualities, have different gender identities, things like that. I love writing. I admit I have a version of Ed that is similar to myself. I love writing it, but you, again, have to make it believable. You don't want to say just like they miraculously overnight, oh, this person was completely hetero yesterday and now they want nothing to do with the opposite sex at all ever. You can't do that. Because that's not really, that's not how people work. If you want to have them, say, be with an, I'll use, because like I said, I'm used to writing men, so I'm going to have to use this as an example. So if you're used to writing, or if you want to write male and the character that you're working with has traditionally gone female as their partner choice, maybe go bi instead of full-on gay. You have to acknowledge the canon in order for people to buy into what you're trying to do, I guess. And like I said, it's another huge mistake that I think people make when they're forcing like original characters and known characters. I mean, when you're working with two OCs, this isn't a big deal because you can set them up exactly as you want them. But like I said, when you're working with somebody else's established character, it comes back around to keep their personality in mind. You really can't just force it. Because you're not doing anybody any favors that way either. I mean, I know that a lot of fan fiction and a lot of media and whatnot, a lot of us crave that sort of representation that we don't get. And that's a huge outlet for fan fiction. And with your character, if you want this world to exist, if you want them to believe, if you want your readers to believe that this person belongs in the canon world and belongs with this canon character, that you don't, that was established like a complete 180 to what you want to do with them, put a little thought into it. Make sure, again, that the relationship is realistic, that it's like, okay, so this person's only been with females before. Maybe something happens to them. Maybe like grew up a little, or especially if you're talking like if you like started out with these characters being like teenage characters, a lot changes between your teen years and even like your, like I said, mid-20s or to up until about your 30s. A lot about you people change. They discover things, they learn things. I would suggest, making it like that. It's like, well, they had time, and like I said, it just rolls right back to that point. You need to have that show of time passing and events happening to them, their world around them affecting them, things like that. It'll definitely be a lot more believable. I mean, personally, I'm a great example of that. So, and don't go to believe you if, like, say you're taking a character that you see in canon that's 17 years old, and, oh, he's only been interested in girls, or only been interested in boys, or whatever, and flip-flop him, like, a year later. That's fickle reality. It's possible because, like I said, a lot of teenagers can flip from one to the other daily. But it's not a relationship anybody's going to take seriously. If you want people to take it seriously, at least give them a couple years to have figured it out.
So it seems to really all boil down to, if you want a relationship pairing, regardless of who the two characters are, treat it as if it was an actual relationship in the real world, because that's what's realistic and relatable and will give you the ability to make the pairing actually work over time. If you want your pairing just to have like a one-night stand, different rules probably apply.
Yeah, because there was always the drunken vendors and the the fuck the world, pardon my French.
Mm.
Everybody has a breaking point like that, and they have those tangents, those small spits of their life where they're just like, whatever, let's do it. And if that's what you're writing, that's fine. You know what? Have them sleep with every Tom, Dick, and Harry that they can get their hands on. Again, nothing wrong with that. Go for it. But it comes down to just bear in mind where you want it to go, I think. And of course, like you said, base it in reality, base it in the way real things happen. I mean, even like your fantasies and your sci-fi book, your sci-fi stories and things that are supposed to be completely fantastical, the characters themselves still have a measure of realism.
99% of manga and anime are purely fantastical, but their relationships are still, for the most part, believable and relatable.
Right. Because even though they have these crazy things going on around them, they're still normal, and I use normal loosely, people.
You need to have your audience relate in some way to your story. And the best way to do that is to write humanistic, realistic characters, even in a fantastical setting.
Exactly.
If you don't have anything in your story that the reader can relate to, then there's going to be a massive disconnect.
And you get that's nice, and off they go, and that's it.
And I feel like just with any writing, regardless of if there's a pairing in it or not, every single person who reads it is not necessarily going to get that pairing or understand it or appreciate it or enjoy it. Just as with any piece of literature or art or anything really, you're not going to please everyone out there.
No, you're
So
not.
don't try. You will not succeed in that regards. You will please some, and hopefully you please yourself in what you've written, but don't expect a 100% favorability from your audience.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, know your audience. Know who you're writing for. Because that'll help you with your own head so that you're not trying to write for everybody. There's a lot of well-written fan fiction that I've seen, and I guess I use fan fiction, that's what I read mostly these days. It's well established right from the get-go that this person knows who they're writing to, who they're expecting to find their stuff.
All right, I think we're going to start wrapping things up just to keep things rolling. If there's any last minute commentary or references we want to toss out there for our viewers, now would be the time to do so.
Is there anything else you wanted? Because I'll get up now. Okay. Well, looks like you got me for the rest of the night.
Okay.
Want to go?
The only thing I would toss out there is for the viewers and listeners out there, if they want to toss in the comments some pairings that they've seen work, maybe with a link so we can check them out in the future, or are there any pairings that really didn't work for you and why? Like what made it not relatable or not believable? And again, toss the links to whatever you're referencing in the comments so we can check it out, the other viewers can check it out. Continue this talkie point, because it's a fun one. And we really could go on forever about it.
I would be glad to accept links to really good fan fiction or to really good, well-written stories.
Same here, considering most of the fan fiction I've read was while on the Fairy Tale podcast, and they read the purposefully bad ones. The painfully bad ones. So
yeah.
it would be nice to get some good stuff out there. So post them in the comments so we can all check it out.
It can be from anything, really.
Yeah. But with that, let's roll on to the highlight reel, where we have a couple news pieces to highlight for this week.
Actually, just a real quick, CJ, I'm going to let Will have the mic back now that I've ranted for half an hour.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for joining in.
Oh, thank you. All right.
While they swap out, I'll get things queued up for the highlights. Let's see here. We do the thing and the other thing, and it does the stuff and the whatnots, and hey, we're screen sharing now. The first of two highlights for this week are Mattel came out with a new line of superhero girls because we need superhero dolls. We need good representation out there. The interesting thing that they did in regards to this one is they actually crowdsourced the designs for them. Because Mattel finally figured out if they want people to play with some of their toys, they should actually go to that audience that they want to engage with and ask their opinions on it. Which is sadly relatively unheard of in the retail industry. So it was kind of nice to actually see someone taking that up and actually reaching out to the general audience to see just what do, in this case, girls, or primarily girls, actually want in superhero dolls. And it wasn't to make them look all quote-unquote girly or whatnot. It was they wanted them to look like superheroes, regardless of what gender they happen to be. And personally, I think they came out pretty cool.
Yeah, I was looking at them earlier, and it's all good here.
And reading through some of the comments, I learned that apparently the Poison Ivy doll, the little whips and stuff, are actually bendable and posable and whatnot, which is a nice touch. I don't know if the same goes for Wonder Woman's lasso or not.
These do look like they're going to be on the pricey side of the spectrum. They seem to be very high quality,
Yeah, and
especially the clothed ones.
well,
Well, I mean, they're all clothed. But I mean,
some
ones
have
where
more layers than others.
right.
But for our audio listeners, the dolls look, I would put them akin to, I want to say the Bratz dolls, but it's like a merge between the Bratz and Barbies in regards to style. And they do look like they're posable. It looks like they can actually stand up free without a stand or a frame or anything. So they should be posable just for fun and stuff like that. So it's cool that they're actually trying this, and hopefully it's picked up by more retailers and production companies out there to do such things, because it would be nice to see more crowdsourcing of opinions to actually get what people want. Because marketing. And because it's just cool. And the other highlight is yesterday, as of this recording, it was Ada Lovelace Day, or Lovelace. I'm not sure how the last name is pronounced. And I admittedly had no idea who this person was or what this day was about. But apparently, Ada Lovelace Day is an international celebration of the achievements of women in science, technology, engineering, and maths, which is just the acronym of STEM, which most academics are familiar with at least. And although that we've effectively missed Ada Lovelace Day as of this recording, since we're a day late, I just thought I'd bring it up because I thought it was cool that there is such a day. And personally, I wish that they added arts to that part, but that is an ongoing discussion in regards to STEM versus STEMA, or however people want to pronounce the added acronym once you add arts onto it. No, it was STEM or STEAM, actually. That's how they fit it in. But it's interesting that it's a worldwide event, and it's actually really growing from what I was able to understand while perusing through all this. And for those unfamiliar with who Ada Lovelace was, she was apparently the first computer programmer, which pretty damn cool. And hopefully I remember this for next year so we can actually do a bit more research about it. And the link to this and the article on Mattel's crowdsourcing are in the show notes for episode 113. You can find that over on FC Writers under the Word Ninjas Live page for this episode, if you want to check the articles out for yourself. Come on, stop screen sharing. You can do it. I believe in you, Hangouts. There we go. Yeah, not much in regards to highlights for this week. It's been a relatively quiet week, and no new bundles. The ones from last week are still ongoing. I do believe they actually added a couple more audiobooks to the Goosebumps bundle, but the emails they send out for those when they say, hey, we added new stuff to this bundle already going on, they don't actually call out or isolate the additions, just that it's a thing that happened. So I wasn't able to bring up conveniently which ones were added offhand. With that, it's time for the Productivity and Inspiration Station, where we get to talk about what we did over the last week. I went on vacation. I did not do many productive things because I wandered Cape Cod and I went through all the bookstores.
Dun dun dun.
And I also caught up with my godmother, who I have not seen in over a decade, so it was nice to catch up. And I completely unplugged from everything. I mean, except for the phone because I needed the GPS at times. I actually followed Justin's advice and pretty much left my phone off for the entire time. And I left my laptop at home.
Was Cape Cod open this time of year? Or was it similar to when I went in the spring and it was a fun adventure in a barren wasteland?
I'd say it was about 50% closed, 50% closing.
Hmm.
There were a lot of shortened hours. There were a lot of things that were unfortunately not available. And also compound that with Sunday schedules and then holiday schedules because of Columbus Day. So
Hmm.
everything was kind of out of whack. But I
I
had a
actually
lot.
like it better. It's more intimate and there's less tourists around.
Yeah, there were minimal tourists even up in Provincetown, which was nice.
I
But
have to go there one time with somebody who knows the area because it looked like a very interesting town to walk around and go into places, but it was very intimidating because I seemed to have been the only one on the road at the time, and it seems to be a lot of summer vacation houses more than actual real places.
yeah, if it's in regards to Provincetown, you want to just play with the main strip and maybe a block off of the main strip in any direction, and that'll cover pretty much everything. And I would highly recommend going to a parking lot, parking there, and just walking the whole thing, because driving down the main strip is nigh impossible.
Yeah, that was kind of our feeling. We were lucky enough where there was no traffic because there was an ice storm. So it wasn't so bad, but I can see that it could be very precarious because number one, it's the only road in all of the eastern part of Cape Cod, and it gets extremely narrow in places. And there's actually another parallel road that runs along the length, but that runs through the heart of Provincetown itself. We actually avoided it and kind of rode the coast road. I wonder if we would have had more success in places to visit had we actually gone through the center of town.
If you ever want tips for Provincetown, I managed to figure out the best options for getting around there.
Maybe next time we'll have to set up a double date or something.
Yeah, a bit of a trip, but we can make it work. Let's see. Other than that, I actually managed to finish an entire book while on vacation, start and finish. And I almost finished a second book. I have a couple pages to go. So it was nice to actually just read without worrying about timing or anything like that. And I was good. I only purchased 3 books while on vacation, despite going to 4 different bookstores. But beyond that, I didn't really do or accomplish anything since last week.
Perfect.
I took advantage of the vacation for what it was.
That was your prescription.
Yes. What has Will been up to since last week?
Well, I, surprisingly to myself, got way further ahead than Game Break than I expected to. I apparently got enough episodes done to be done for the rest of this month.
Yay!
I was just on a kick earlier this week where I was just like, I just want to play BioShock, but I need to get episodes done before I can play more, so I guess I have to get more episodes done so I can play more BioShock. So, hooray for being ahead on that. I also completed the rough draft for the first scene of the next chapter for Roommate, which was a bit of a slow start. Beginning of the chapters are always slow to start, but I'm glad I got it out of the way, and I think for a rough draft it looks good, in that it will probably have a bit of editing, but it's a rough draft, so that's allowed.
Cool.
Unfortunately, what was it?
Cool.
Fortunately, I fell a little bit behind on the audio editing. As fun as conventions are, they always throw off my schedule for keeping up with the audio edits for this channel. And oh hey, tomorrow is when Not Suitable for Ninjas is due. Oops. So I have to bust out some of that and try to play catch up. Probably even going to be working on that tonight after the podcast, but it happens.
Well, at least you have Game Break out of the way.
Yeah, I take a little bit of time off of that for a bit, Bioshock, because it's gotten really interesting.
What has Justin been up to since last week?
I too went on a road trip, except it was for a single day. I went up to a small brewery, Smutty Nose, up in New Hampshire, in Hampton, I believe, right south of Portsmouth. And originally, the story behind that is that I went to a restaurant bar, and there was a tap takeover where the brewery would come and like offer a bunch of beers on tap. They would just bring like one of each keg for each flavor that they have. And I was like, oh, there's a little dinky brewery that I've never heard of. I'd like to try something. I don't know what to get, so I asked them if I could get like a sample of like 3 different beers, because figuring I would just pick the best one. And it turned out it was really hard to pick the best one because they were all amazing. So I'm like, well, let me do a little more research, and it turns out that the brewery was in New Hampshire. And I'm like, well, now we are going to have to do a road trip. So I set up the road trip. I tricked some friends into going with me. And after we had planned it out, the brewery decided to announce that they were having an Oktoberfest that day. So we ended up at a regular old party with a bunch of people. And we had a lot of fun. And that was the majority of my weekend, was driving 8 hours round trip to go visit a place for 4 hours.
Still very cool.
Yeah, you know me and my road trips between the hangar in Amherst and all the other places I go for no reason. I like driving. Don't necessarily like driving at midnight, but it worked out. I had my 5-hour energy that I took right before I left to go home. And we stopped and got ice cream at a famous ice cream place in Massachusetts, Kimball Farms.
Cool.
On the trip, I was introduced to a place by one of my friends that CJ might want to go to one day, which is a diner used bookstore combination. And every meal that you get a free used book.
I'm intrigued.
And next time we meet up, I took a bunch of pictures for you to show. It was really cool. It basically had, a diner layout, except on the walls were basically rows and rows of bookshelves.
Yes, please.
And they also had, grab bags set up. So it looked really cool. And I thought of you immediately. As for actual productivity, I'm way ahead of schedule on my Academy of Excellence stuff, to the point where I need to slow down and focus on other things now. And I can start implementing the new skills that I'm learning and actually put in some work. And that's kind of exciting because I'm kind of approaching new territory for a lot of things. And there'll be more on that soon, especially on the website as I chronicle the growth that I'm having. And coming out of left field, not really out of left field, I kind of knew it was coming, but I didn't know it was going to be this atrocious, especially after today. This is another week of work panic and stress. Haven't had one of these in a while where I thought that I was living at work. Things have been pretty calm and pretty organized, but recently it was discovered that one small thing was done wrong, and unfortunately that one small thing is basically step 1 of 100, and now we have to redo basically everything.
Fun.
And the project was due last week.
Oh, of course.
So that's not as fun. Something that's not in the show notes is that I've been coming up with a cast of characters for my NaNoWriMo entry this year, which I'm really excited about pantsing. it's just going to be a really stupid action movie book. And it's going to be very tongue-in-cheek, and there's going to be characters based on existing intellectual property, and you're going to recognize who everyone is, and it's going to be super obvious and super self-serving and super fun. And I'm going to post it all in its entirety, unedited, besides the rogue, you know, spelling error on the website every single day. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. This is, of course, on the presumption that we're not going to have a massive snow or ice storm that knocks out power for a whole week just as Nano starts.
That's true.
Because we've never had that happen before.
No, the typewriter came in handy at that point.
And now you have two of them.
Oh, that's right. I do have yours. In fact, my foot is resting against yours.
And what has the Calvin been up to since last time?
Let's see. I started working on a new song, and then I promptly forgot how it went. So it took me a while to try to figure out what that idea was. Eventually, I got it back, but that was less than fun. Especially, like, the initial idea that I had was really good. It's like one of those dreams where it's like having like a really, really good dream, and then like right after you wake up you remember it, and then 5 minutes later, wait, what was that dream about? Ah, crap.
Those are fun until they're not.
Yeah. So that for productivity, that's essentially it. But other things that have been going on since the last time, I spent some time out of town last weekend and went to visit my dad in Delaware. That was a really nice, it was a very nice trip. His house is in this development in the middle of bloody nowhere, but like he has a very decent sized plot of land, and it's really peaceful in the mornings, and so I like that. Hopefully, I'm definitely gonna visit him more once I can get my car situation situated. So maybe like,
once the dust settles.
Yes. And once I can take this frickin' road test, which is not till the end of November. Great. Thanks, New York State.
It's still happening this year.
Yeah. And as I mentioned earlier, and the viewers can obviously tell, I am minus hair this week. Hair on my head this week. I have a cousin who is currently going through chemotherapy, and in the last week his hair started to fall out. So he decided to just go ahead and shave his head. And as a show of solidarity, I decided to shave my head, just to show that just a little gesture to show that I'm thinking about him, and I got his back to whatever extent I can in this journey that he's going through right now. So
nice. Hopefully he's faring well.
He's been faring pretty well so far. It's been a lot of up and down days, but he's getting through it. He's fighting, so I'm very happy about that.
Good.
So that was my week.
And of course, to our viewers and listeners out there, you're more than welcome to post your productivity for the past week in the comments or the iTunes feed. continue the conversations. Talk with us, converse with us, distract us with shiny baubles and links. Next up, events. Nano is still getting closer. I do not care for this. Nano is just a few weeks away, spanning the entire month of November. And I'm sure we're all going to have fun with it, but I'm not ready. Not even remotely ready. Which is a bit of a problem since I'm an ML. As a municipal liaison, I really should get on that. I hopefully will have more to talk about that for next week. As for next year, we still have your Minicon and KineticCon queued up. And we did hear unfortunate news that it looks like Inconceivable is not going to be happening next year or the foreseeable future for reasons unknown to us. Which is unfortunate because I know I had a lot of fun at the last two conventions that they've had. So hopefully sometime in the future we'll be able to see them at another convention or some other iteration of it in some way, shape, or form. We shall see. But beyond that, that's everything we have for you for this week. As always, if we have entertained you in any way, shape, or form over the last hour and change, go check out the YouTube channel where the entire backlog of episodes are, all of our game break shenanigans, convention recordings and interviews, and anything else we get up to are posted. You can also track us down via social media. We're over on Tumblr at fcwordninja.tumblr.com. If you want to talk to us on Twitter, it's at fcwordninja. And we're also posting stuff regularly over on Facebook, facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters.
This just in. I apologize for interrupting, but this is related.
Rude.
The first day of NaNoWriMo is on a Sunday. It's a pretty convenient day for those who want to write the whole novel in a single day.
Presuming that you don't have a candy hangover from Halloween. Which is a Saturday, so I can only imagine the parties that will be going on.
I could roll that right into NaNoWriMo. Just go right from Halloween right into writing.
And then you'll need to take Monday off to recover from all of that.
Yeah, I would definitely take Monday off. But this is intriguing. And I may have to think about this. Tune in next week to see if I'm going to take the plunge and at least try it. I heard it's not easy.
It's a shame that the 30th is going to be on a Monday. That's just inconvenient.
Well, you better rush up that last weekend. Pretty good. Yeah. Use Monday to fix your word count if the verifier says you're missing 15 words.
Yeah, that can be the word padding day. But until then, why don't you go check out the Etsy store, which still has all of the shiny baubles on it. Etsy.com/shop/fullcoveragewriters. And it's the last few months before we start updating designs and start rolling out new ideas and products, so if there's anything on there you want, now would be the time to grab it, because once designs are updated, the old stuff is going to start getting archived. And if you want to track me down, good luck. The next rest of the year is going to be pretty crazy between Nano and work and everything else, but your best bet really is still my personal Tumblr page, which is fancypantswolf.tumblr.com. Where could people track down Will?
Usually you can find me on my Tumblr page at darkhom.tumblr.com. That is spelled DARKHOM.tumblr.com. You can also find sporadic updates on My Roommate's a Stripper at myroommatesastripper.tumblr.com, and you can always support me personally on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Darko.
And how about Justin?
For now, Mechanical Justin is the place to check out. But if I plan on doing this one-day nano thing, I may end up periscoping the whole thing and do a 24-hour live stream, which I think would be pretty rad. So I'm going to, if I do go through with this, which at this point I think I am because I've been talking it up so much, I'll be setting up accounts for that. So
You can do a
stay
24-hour
tuned.
Periscope?
I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
If all else fails, just do several 8-hour hangouts.
I probably am going to have to pee at some point, so that's probably a good idea.
And where can people track down Calvin?
Your best bet is... what have I been using lately? Instagram is good. Oh yeah, I've also been attempting Twitter as of late. Keyword attempting. Both of those you can find me at CCWII and on Tumblr. Tumblr at times. What is my name on Tumblr? Instacal. There we go. So there.
And with that, that's episode 113 of Word Ninjas Live. Again, thank you all for joining us, and tune in next week where I don't know what we're talking about, but we have a good month or two worth of talkie points queued up. So look forward to all of that. And until next time, go be creative. Go write some stories, write some fanfic. Figure out your nano before nano actually comes. Until next time, everyone.